Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bluewater Engineering Seminar for 2025. Thank you very much for coming to the Hotel Eden, and thank you very much for joining us online. What we're going to do this morning is basically an overview of the SE engineering program, and we're also going to do a bit of a future scan to see what's coming up in the future. That's basically a summary of the general topics that we're going to be talking about. With me in the room, I've got Matthew Nuttall-Smith, who actually won the Bluewater Scholarship for engineering a couple of years ago. He just finished his training program, and he's passed his oral, and he's now an engineering officer of the Watch 3000. And next to him, we've got Tim Moss, who is nearly. Oh, you're at the end. Sorry, at the end is Tim Moss, who basically has worked for us for longer than I can remember. Tim is a marine engineer, Royal Navy trained, with a heavy electrical background, and essentially, Tim has set up our engineering program from scratch. And between the two of them, we have Phil Little from the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Phil is an examiner of engineers and is very heavily involved in the implementation of the SE program, and in fact in all things engineering. So later on, Phil is going to tell us what's going on and what might be coming up in the future. So that's our panelists. My name is John Wyden, in case I forgot to say that. So I'm the head of training and crew at Bluewater, and but you haven't come here to hear me, so I'm going to go hopefully straight on to the no. Yep. Can we change the slide? Yeah. Go ahead. There we go. Right, let's just talk about the context first of all. We'll just do a little setting of context to start with. The industry, as we all know, is changing hugely over the last 20 years, of course, but it seems to be accelerating. Soon there will be more than 100 yachts over 85 meters, which is pretty extraordinary. And if we go to the next slide, can we do that one? No? I think that slide is wrong. It says there are 5,000 yachts over 30 meters. I think the figure is closer to 6,000 yachts. And I know that there are more yachts in build currently. I learned this at the Super Yacht Forum in Metz last November. There are more yachts currently in build than there have ever been. So the industry is really expanding. We are a high-profile industry, and also it's worth noting that we are in the public gaze, because the fact is we all need mobile phones and shoes and bananas, etc. And so all of those things are carried by ship. But nobody needs a super yacht. It is the ultimate in luxury. And so it's consequently, although we understand the value of the industry that employs well north of 100,000 people and contributes billions to the European economy, we're low-hanging fruit and we're easy targets. So we need to react as an industry together and actually work together to think about how we do things. And obviously a big part of that is that we become more green in the way we operate. And that's partly what we're going to be talking about today, because obviously the future is not smelly old diesel engines. The future is going to be something else, but we don't know when that future is going to arrive. But we are going to start looking and preparing for it now, which is some of what we're going to be talking about later. Okay, so that's one thing that's worth stating. People that work on that sort of yacht are usually unlimited cadets with unlimited CMCs who train at the major nautical colleges in the UK or around the world. But of course, the vast majority of crew working in the industry do not have unlimited certificates. And that is why the SB route under the UK flag exists. Now, there is going to be, and I have been saying this for a number of years, but this time I really mean it, there is going to be opening up a pathway to unlimited certification. Now, I don't think anything's been decided yet, and Philip is going to tell us more about what he knows later on. But it is that the momentum is moving in that direction, both on the tech side and on the engineering side. So this is good news for all of us. So that the system is evolving, and what we're going to be talking about today is basically discussing what's going on now, what problems we're having, and where we're going to go in the future. So we'll start with, I'm going to start with Matthew Nuttall-Smith. Matthew is as I said earlier, he's an Nigerian watch, just gone through the Bluewater sponsored sponsorship to get the certificate. And before I move on, I've got to say we are about to relaunch this sponsored cadetship starting in the next few weeks. There'll be two, just like before, there'll be two deck candidates, two engineering candidates. The idea is two in power and deck and an engineer in Palmer, deck and an engineer in Onsty. But to be honest, there'll be four. And you're not really that restricted on where you go and do your training as long as it's with us. So that is going to be announced shortly. If you're interested in doing what Matthew did, then keep an eye on the socials or download the Bluewater app and put on push notifications, and then you'll get informed. As soon as we launch it, you'll get informed if you're interested in going for that. For the deck side, you've got to have at least a yacht master offshore. For the engineering side, you've got to have done a SIM, and then you're eligible to enter the scholarship. So without more ado, Matthew, I'd like to ask you. Matthew has just gone through, and I'd like to ask, well, how was it?
Yeah, no. Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My experience,
Shall I sit down?
Yeah. Love everything last time. You watch the yeah, there's a mic. But
Yeah, use the mic then get it. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for Bluewater for the opportunity to have the scholarship, because the vessel which I was working on board didn't offer any kind of training. So the benefits of working with Bluewater and doing the scholarship was very beneficial towards me and my career progression. And having the opportunity to do the training and having all the training and the working with everyone that works within the Bluewater community, you learn a lot, and I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for what Bluewater have done for me. And it gave me the opportunity to progress very quickly through my training, because I had to do it within a 2-year period. So when I got the scholarship, it was a 2-year period when I did from start to finish. And the choices that I made allowed me to get my certification very quickly. And having the scholarship definitely bad for me.
So what was the biggest problem you had? I'll start with the modules. What was the most difficult module?
Well, I think everybody knows that the auxiliary one is probably the hardest one. That's the one that I put the most effort into learning for. I think you've got obviously all 3 modules. You need to put in the time and prepare yourself for the exam. Because at the end of the day, it all lies on you to do the pre-study to do everything. And the way in which I did it was I did my operational procedure first, and then I did diesel engines. I did those back to back. And then I had about a 6-week period of full study just for auxiliary one. So auxiliary one was the hardest one. But if you do the pre-study and you put in the effort, it's rewarded, because then you know what you're getting when you're going into the exam. Everyone is worried about auxiliary part 1. But if you do the pre-study and you will be back yourself, then it's doable and it's possible.
You mentioned pre-study, but actually it is true, is it not, that basically all of the engineering courses, we're cramming a load of information in your head in a relatively short period of time. And is it really possible to get through the whole syllabus in just effectively 4.5 days?
So for me, yes. I mean, when I did it, my way my brain works, how I study with the pre-study, like I said, it's all about the preparation.
Yeah.
Preparation is key. So by the time you get to the Monday morning, when you're starting to do your, you're starting the course, and then on Friday you're writing it down. if you've done the pre-study, before you walk into the classroom Monday morning, everything that you do in the classroom is just to solidify what you should already know, or at least have, covered in your preparation.
I think you put your finger on it. The pre-study is the difficult part, and that's something that I think we need to improve, because I think the online content of what we offer for engineers is nowhere near enough. So I think that's something we've definitely got to work on over the next few months. What about the training record book, Matthew? How did you find doing that? Because today we've got Phil and we've got Tim, who are here not just to speak but also to listen. So this is all of you in the audience and online. If you have any questions, put them in. We've got a team here who are going to jot them down. We're going to have questions at the end. And I forgot to say, there is, I believe, an online survey which which Sarah has put up. So if you could, those of you online, if you could do that survey, that will be really helpful. So the training record book is. I've got a view about training record books. I don't know much about the engineering one. I know the deck one is pretty hopeless. So how did you find completing the engineering training record book?
Well, I did bring mine today, so if any guys in attendance want to look at mine, feel free if you need a reference. But I'll start with this. When you first get this book, it's quite, so you rest on these programs, so you know where you're going. And, once you get this is kind of the first real step of, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'll make the decision, the active decision to pursue an engineering career. And when you get this, it's a rewarding feeling because you get the certifications saying that you're going on this program. But when you open the book and you see all these empty boxes, it's quite overwhelming. So this was in the whole experience from going from my ANCQ to getting my oral done. This was the hardest thing really for me, because I was a sole engineer on smaller vessels. I don't know how many of you are on smaller vessels. Yeah, and not having a chief engineer. And in the engineering section within this training record book, you have to have everything signed off by CO2 engineer or someone that is competent in engineering. So working through this book was the hardest thing for me. And there are, it's a broad spectrum. There's tasks in there which you may not think is relevant to what you're doing. Like there's, off the top of my head, there's garbage processing plant. Not many yachts have got big garbage processing plants. And then there's work on deck equipment, big stuff, some temperatures. So finding ways to get around the training record book and actively trying to understand what you're doing, that's the hardest part of the training record book. But it is doable. I mean, I've done it. There's people that have done it before me and after me that have done it. So with the training, it's just sitting down and doing it in bite-sized chunks, understanding each section, knowing which way to go about it, understanding what's been asked. Because at the end of the day, this is what the MSA is reviewing and looking at to understand that you've got the experience which they're looking for to issue them.
I said on the engineering record book is a different to the deck one, because the deck one is literally just a collection of signatures. So you would say, Matthew, that you actually did use that as a guide to steer your learning, your self-study effectively. Did you have any problems getting things signed off?
Yes, that's straight up yes. So as I said earlier, I think one thing which I kind of looked on making more for me is you don't know what you don't know. That's the reality of it. You don't know what you don't know. And if you're working on smaller vessels where you haven't got a chief engineer, you sort of again don't know what you don't know. So as on a bigger boat, when you have a chief engineer, you're learning from someone that's got bigger tickets, bigger CSD. So the issue that I had with getting tasks signed off is you need to prove to them say that you have the experience on that equipment. And smaller vessels don't have all equipment which big vessels have, which is asked within the training record book to prove that you have knowledge. So what I had to do to get to comply with what the MC was asking was I had to get an engineering mentor to act as my chief engineer or my CFC, because I was a sole engineer. And by doing that, you might sit here as a sole engineer or online and be wondering how to go about it. I'm a sole engineer, like if the job doesn't get done, I think it's done because I'm the only one that does the job. I've been there, I've done that, I know what it's like, but the MC is not fighting you on what you need to do, they're just making sure that you stay. So getting a chief engineer which will mentor you, all it does is solidify your knowledge by the time you get to doing your NOE, oral prep, and doing your oral at the end. So what you learn here is all carried over into working towards getting your oral back and getting the NOE.
Yeah, that's interesting. So actually, you would say that the training workbook had a valid part of your training in terms of guiding you what to do. And that is, as I said, we're not here to talk about a desktop, but that is a big difference with the tech. Did you have any trouble finding this engineering mentor? What do you do? Go to the engineer on large yachts, or do you can you go to a college? I mean, how does that?
So with the glossing backwards and forwards with the PY, the MCA, they kind of leave it up to you to decide who you want to and how you go about, if I'm not mistaken. It's up to you really to decide which way you want to go about it. So what I did is I did all my 3 modules with the instruction at Bluewater Steve, and he taught me everything that I know for the 3 modules. So then logically, when I had this, because being straight up honest with you guys, I sent this in and it was rejected because I've been honest about the thing that I haven't done. So I haven't got a college spreadsheet one, so I'm not going to say that I've done it. I haven't. So I got feedback from the NSA saying, well, you need to prove that this is what you do. And they said, you need to find someone, or you need to prove to us, write a workbook, or however it is to prove to us that you know the knowledge of what's been asked on the spreadsheet book. So then I approached, you can approach whoever you want, as long as they've got a COT. So I approached Steve, and he essentially, I did everything with Steve. So I did all my 3 modules, so he knows my knowledge. We went through this, and he drilled me on this for 3 or 4 days, making sure that because he's not going to sign off something and put his name on something if he's not confident. Like anyone put your name on it, problem. Let's say it's you're the one that starts, so same with your seat time. So I did it all with Steve. So it's up to you to decide if you have the brand that's for a COC or an examiner, if they're willing to sign it off and be that mentor for you. But that's why I went about it. So I did everything with Steve. So modules, training record book, oral prep, and then the oral. I did all with one verse.
No, you're not up yet, but I can sense you itching to say something. George, do you want to just comment on the TLB stuff? And I'm sure there'll be some more questions later. Yeah, so with the training record book is basically guide learning. It's documents that guide you through what you should be covering shit. There are tasks in there that basically are probably quite difficult to get signed off. It is part of a wider kind of system of teaching and learning for marine engineers. For example, when I did my cadetship, I had a training record book similar to the SV training record book. And my sponsoring company did fly vessels and then canvas. I went to the North Sea. And one of the tasks in that record book was repairing steam boiler. And my ship didn't have that, didn't have any form of steam system. So I had to do the same thing. I spent the day in a workshop in my maritime college, having to demonstrate that I could operate a boiler, knowing full well that I've never used that skill on board my ship if I stayed with that company. But it also, the reason it's there is if I did go on another ship, it did have a steam boiler, I'd have those skills. Okay, maybe, give me 3-4 years down the line, but I could then either go back to my own notes and have a look through them, or I could find the right information to operate that ship with safety. So that's why we do have these stuff in there. It might not be on your yacht. And if you go to a bigger yacht, you might have that machinery. You're still going to know how to operate it how it works. If it breaks, then you might have to fix it. So that's why we put those stuffs in there. Um, for evidence, so there's two parts to this. One, you've got the task signed off by someone that actually knows what they're doing. So if they come seriously, they've done that same trade. This is I often see people get their training record signed up by the captain and master. The issue with that is the master is not being trained in engineering. So there are tasks in there where they probably wouldn't know whether you were competent, so therefore they can't play stuff double. So with when you're a sole engineer, what I would say is you can get the master training task to acknowledge that you were training or you were going through that system at that time. But you then need to find someone that has an engineering PhD to review it. So what I recommend is you have a rough book or an evidence file, and you write a report or you write down evidence or pictures of doing the tasks, things like that, to demonstrate to whoever is going to sign that and finally sign off your training records and you're competent. So there are ways and means to get through it. It sometimes might take a bit of a while and get it sorted. And you might have to gauge fine with someone that has PhD that might not necessarily say on that same shit yet. Yeah, thank you for that, Phil. So Matthew, you're just about done now. You've just decided to downsize in terms of engine size. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I did my oral in February, just so you know. So I've done a season now. Basically, I decided to downscale for a little because I've been studying for this for so long. When I started yachting in 2000, end of 2016, it was the Y program, and they had just come out with saying that they were bringing in their steam program. So I was on this cusp of changing between the two. So, and then obviously to everyone in the way the state program and all that. So my decision now is I'm leaving my current vessel and I'm going on to something a bit smaller, but it's a high performance racing yacht. So I'm going to be doing that for the season. And basically it's going to give me a break. I'm going to get a different exposure to from what else is setting yacht and hone knowledge of hydraulics, the modern hydraulics and setting yacht. Because going from personally, I know that once I do this job now, which I'm going to take, is the next one would be moving up onto a bigger vessel, over 500 GT, getting the ISM, better understanding ISM, because that's when you're under 500, you're not exposed to, you might be the ISM. But once I go bigger, then I'm going to be working with 500 and then I'm going to 3,000 G. So this is kind of just a break between my studies and so it's an exciting time, but yeah, it's just enjoying yourself once you get the qualification. It all work so hard. Yeah, there's a lot of energy and investment into personal knowledge which you do for this. So that's so rewarding yourself once you get there. It'll be something that you want to do. It's something fun. Be sure to probably enjoy it.
Thanks very much, Matthew. And we enjoyed having you with us. Best of luck for your future career. And if you have any questions on what's said in the rest of the seminar, do feel free to dive in. Tim, you are next. Yeah.
I just say something.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
My theory in the approach that actually you can come in with the right attitude and the right mindset and crack through this syllabus fairly quickly. Time is obviously a barrier, but I think you ought to be congratulated for working hard with the right mindset and getting strong, coming out with rank results. So well done, mate.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just to give you guys a quick overview, I don't know how you guys will hold very long you are. But I did within 2 years, because I basically went from my AC2, got this, and then within 2 years I had marketing. Was from November to November, and every I got my oral done. And I had a week was issued in November, so it took exactly 2 years from when I got the training record, essentially. And the way in which I did it personally, which worked well for me, is I did all the safety modules first, and then towards the end of the scholarship and towards when I'm new, I was to do my oral, is I did all my modules back to back. So then you have that knowledge. So then as soon as you finish that, then you have your NLE, so the knowledge fresh, and you have your knowledge today. And then you don't have to worry about doing the safety. That was my personal experience and what worked for me. So I got all the safety stuff done and then and then the one just on my note, so I left my op. So when I was on board, I left and I went to the commercial side and I was on rotation. So that also gave me the time to do the exams pretty rapidly with scholarship, and that was better, I think. So having that rotation and taking a step out of the yacht industry, and also focused on getting my qualifications beforehand.
Thanks very much, Matthew. That was great. So our next speaker is my old friend Tim Moss, I believe. Is that right? No, is it not next?
No, I'm not your friend.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
No, my goodness.
Are you next, sir?
I think so.
Oh, my apologies. So our next speaker is Phil Levin from the MCA. I'll let Phil explain his background. Do you want to start at the lecture or do you want to stay there? It's up to you.
I might be lazy. I might sit down.
Fair enough. I'll pass you the microphone. Then shut up.
Hi. Thanks for having me here today. So my name's Phil. I am an summer engineers at Maritime Coast Guard Agency. I have worked commercial, so I've worked on spy vessels and cameras. I've worked for New Cape Water Force as well. So their vessels been probably very similar to yachts. So I've got experience in both the unlimited engineering and the small vessel engineering as well. I was my SC chief engineer to the 3,000 gross and 9,000 kilowatt, which we tend to refer to as the big chip, and the 3,000 being the baby chip. So I say that on you guys. That's just me trying to power the magnets. This it wasn't just me.
Wow, this is ETO. Just trying to give you a brief overview of what the Maritime Coast Agency does, why we do things the way that we do them, and a few pointers as well. So we're a government agency. We're there to regulate, and we are there to prevent loss of life, damage to property, and damage to the coast. Let's see. Sorry, I took this off our actual website. So we produce that legislation. So the legislation most applicable to everyone in this room is MSA 1904. So this is the actual pathway route for this engineering. MSN 1857 being the unlimited engine as well, and 1859 being the old yacht routes, so the wire routes. The reason for posting the wire routes was basically because we were trying to common certain modules. So we used to have a tower engineering route. We had a customs engineering route, and there was a lot of commonality between them. So the idea was to combine them, and then as a result of that, it didn't mean you just got a COC to work on yachts, and you could then potentially work on tugs and other vessels as well. A bit of transferability. So part of that is we provide certification to seafarers. So the COC being one of the things using your safety courses as well, and issued on our behalf. So as a wider part of the MCA as well, we inspect and survey vessels. That's not quite my area, but also inspectors, flag state and stations, things like that as well. So your ship is registered in the UK, then you might have inspection by us as well. We also, this is more my area as well, we audit shipping companies and training providers. So if you've done a course that's been MCA through, it goes through an audit cycle. So
between 2.5 and 5 years, usually an examiner will turn up and put out a course. Actually, course notes. John, you had the pleasure of that last year, didn't you?
I did. Thank you.
Okay. So that's we don't just do certifications. A lot of other bits to do. And also we represent the UK at the International Maritime Organisation. So this is the wider state maritime things, transactional industry. So therefore we collaborate and work with lots of other countries as well that will have their equivalent maritime coast guard agency. No, okay. So probably the most important part of this for everyone was really the certification and training. So when you get your COC, you'll see like code references in it. So there'll be like 3 I's and then a dash. It might say 1, 2, or 3. That basically translates into an international convention, which is the International Convention of Standards of Training, Certification, Watchkeeping, Seafarers. So that's STC goal. And so you can get that referred to. That is basically what governs all maritime training for anyone on the ship. So we, STC is basically members standards. So everyone who has, or every country that wants to get involved with shipping or seafaring will basically be a member of the IMO, and they will sign up to STCW. So you have to meet these minimum standards of training. There's no way around it. It's also almost like an international benchmark. So it's very easy to see what another country has done as far as training's gone. And when they meet that standard, they then get COC, so competency, and then you can kind of compare and you know where it's at. So we do it in 3 main ways. So you've got certificates. So you've done your advanced firefighting, you'll get a certificate, and you get what's named as a certificate proficiencies, a little bit more. So more fuel ratings, and some of the more advanced safety courses of ours will come up to the certificate proficiency. And then we move on to certificate competencies, these officers, and it's not just engineers and deck officers as well, their CSD. So it's mainly so that every country can see that you've met their standards and that you are trained correctly and you are safe. So it's like state sectors going toward your yacht, and they'll probably want to see that you are all trained and that you are safe to operate in the capacity that you are employed as. So part of that is the certificates across and certificate of competency, and then they'll know you're still seeing that. So the small vessel engineer training. So we follow the STCW convention, and so we follow that. The training that you undergo is mapped to that convention, and we agree to other flag states that you are safe and competent at the level that you've been trained to. So how do we actually do that? So how do we assess someone as being competent, and how do we show that you are worthy of a COC? So first off, we do CSALA. So the trader record book is guided learn. It guides you through the pathway or through the process of becoming a marine engineer. So if you follow that and get this signed off, then we can be reasonably certain that you have the knowledge that you need to become or be a marine engineer officer. Unfortunately, we do still have to do written assessments. I don't think there's any way around having to do an assessment. We've all done them. We've all done education, so GCSEs for the UK, A levels, etc. State for us, we have to think. Workshop skills is slightly different. It's more of an engineering thing. So when you do your SE workshop skills, you can do weeks of kind of basic machining and by then getting more awareness of what you might have to do on board a ship to get yourself out of trouble. But also when you've got contractors on board to kind of get an understanding of what they want to do as well. And then finally is the oral assessment. So an oral exam is a bit like a job interview. I think it's probably the closest I can kind of describe it. You sit down, well, we don't sit down, we do a few things, we do it online, and you sit down with an examiner or a surveyor that is will inside out to the exam. And they will ask you a set of questions. So tend to go through at the operational level, so your SD or OW will be safety, essentially will safe. And you can do operational jobs as well. So I guess you got that, you got that. Yeah. So it's not, they are nerve-wracking and they are not always pleasant experience, but they are part of the way that we need to prove that you are competent and safe. Yeah. Obviously, just keep the theme of mind with what you said. So two things, just with the workshop skills. I don't know how you guys feel about workshop skills. When I read it, I was like, why don't you guys do workshop skills? Like I was like, I know how to use a hammer and how to use a screwdriver, but it was actually beneficial. So just if you having wonders why you got to do workshop skills and you're wondering, oh, it's basic tool, it's actually a beneficial course. So that get in mind that you have to do it. So it is a beneficial thing. It kind of refreshes your memory and also you might have missed or not quite grasp or didn't know how to use certain things. So it is a good course. And then with the oral, like, again, it's all in preparation. I personally recommend it. Depends how your guys' brain works, how you learn things. But doing the oral prep, it's preparing for the oral. So when I did my oral prep, you're going to ask loads and loads of questions. But then the more prep you do, the easier the exam, the oral. I'm not saying that, it depends on you, but for me personally, it was getting grilled and the prep for the oral made the oral more easier and doable for me. And doing it with familiar faces. You're answering this question with perhaps you that, it's broad spectrum, but if you know it and you back yourself in skills and the prep that you've done, it's doable and it's possible, but it is intimidating. But yeah, it's just one-on-one and I'm right. There's also the examiners, the person asking you questions has gone through the exact same process you've gone through. They've done oral exams as well. It's just part of the process, unfortunately. So just a quick overview of the actual pathway. I'll try to kind of simplify as much as possible. I have the non-STCW. So STCW only applies to vessels over 750 kilowatts. There are a couple of other areas where we are flexible with some of these rules, but in general, the approved AC1 course needs to not not STCW, but they're more applicable to the smaller size shops. And then we've got the marine engine operator's license. So again, it's an operator's license because it's not STCW, and you won't get a SDHD when it's in line with that convention. So then we move on to the small vessel engine obstacle watch. So I would say you've got your 9,000 kilowatt. It used to be called the small vessels technical engineer, and unfortunately we had to change that because being an audit, which another flag state, each flag state can audit the other and separately doing things correctly. And we were told that we couldn't go from a trainee straight to what would be considered management positions. The second engineer actually considered people with management level competency, because you're in charge of things and you're the one that is there to make these decisions. So you've got to change that to your OW and training the same. As far as manning goes, I think it's only a very large yacht with relatively low power is the only size that you do need one. But you can still get the endorsement second as a technical engineer. And we've got two levels of ST chief engineer.
So you can work towards the environmental grade term 3,000 kilowatt chief, quickly straight to the large chief. So there are rig exams involved, oral exams as well, and CSERIS as well. So getting onto the pathway. So I think for most of you, you'll be on what's known as the experienced seafarer route. So you've done your 24 months CSERIS, and when you've registered with Bluewater and Venus, you will train a record book. There are a few other ways as well. We have the MCA crew program, which is an apprenticeship, probably not applicable to the yacht. You've also got what's known as an alternate route. So you hold resident engineering qualifications, you might degree of mechanical engineering, meaning apprenticeship, and that tends to be matched through a training provider, and then they'll give you what's known as an action plan of what you need to do to get to COC. We also have conversion routes. So we have, if you hold a, so you've got another instance, stating you're transferring across, you might have your AWR limited, and then you're moving into the SB, do that. And then we have what's in a transfer route, which is basically you've got a COC from another country. We have what's in flag setting building list for these countries that we consider their levels of training, engineering training, to be on par with our list, and therefore we will let you transfer into our system. Usually people transfer in and then upgrade. So they might come with us in the OIW and then move straight to the SDG engineer. So this is probably the difficult bit, probably that you will be to clarify, because this is where I get a lot of questions. The CSERIS is on the job learning, and as I said, it's guided through all the training. But so I've tried very, very hard to simplify and kind of summarize what we mean by CSERIS. Doesn't fit perfectly because NSN 9 forward there's quite a bit, and then actually defines what we mean by CSERIS. So the main one is CSERIS. So what we mean is the yacht should be proceeded to sea and underway with the same main propulsion. So it should be sailing, you should be going from one port out to sea to another port, and that is the general idea of what CSERIS is. And unfortunately, that is the global definition of CSERIS, is what every other place will do as well. And basically, I know that the way that yachts operate, sometimes you've only got one owner, and they might come down for a month, and unfortunately, it does take time to get it. I know, and it is one of those ones that it does take time if you're on that kind of vessel. It is difficult to get around that. We did try to kind of not simplify it, but make it a bit more flexible for the SB route. The other part is watch keeping. So strictly speaking, when the ship's sailing, you should be on watches anyway. So CSERIS and watch keeping can be interchangeable, though they are slightly different. The names in the COC, the engineer watch, so watch keeping also it's waiting and monitoring and hoping that nothing bad happens. But if it does, then you have the training experience to deal with these problems. So we do allow some bits of watch keeping to be done, say at anchor, or if the generator's on. It is very much case by case, and you need to show to me or to another examiner that you've got the right machinery, everything's running, and you are maintaining watches. So this is sometimes where it does end up with applications to us being what's independent. So we wait for more information. And then anything else would be termed as on-board service. So you must be signed on as an engineer or an assistant engineer, training engineer, and need to be doing duties that relate to engineering. I'll send that out, train record, so learning.
So again, this is what we were talking about. So task signed off by a suitably trained officer. So again, I think we covered that. It's as long as you find someone that has a seriously applied level and is willing to sign your task off, doesn't have to be on the ship with you. If you have people that you know that have been to CSC or you go to a college or training advisor that has a lecturer with the CSC to review or training record, and we demonstrate to them that you've done these tasks and you're competent, fine, they can suck off. They take the CSC number in, same as what you were doing if you were under the supervision of an engineer officer. And the other recommendation is have a locals folder. I've had situations where training records got in, so they actually so our certification teams, our certification officers will review it. I've had some where they're making 2 tasks missing, the 1 2 tasks. And what I'll do then is I'll go through your evidence folder, and if I can find written something or you've got a picture of you that looks like you're doing that task, then I'll sign off myself. So it's a very good tool for revising your board exams. Then you can use that as the kind of refresh your knowledge. So written exams, the modules. I know the ALTS one is and the ALTS 2 are difficult subjects. I think because it's the sheer amount of materials involved in accelerate. It does take time. Good exam technique can get you over the threshold, and then just going through. I used to find videos are probably the best way of kind of understanding how some systems work. And then good understanding books. Unfortunately, I can't recommend them to you because I'm meant to be impartial, but there are good books out there that will cover lots of these subjects. So we have 2 types of written exams. We have what's known as marine engineering knowledge, or in the UK. In the deck side, the DECIs I call in these safety papers, so they are predominantly safety. And you showing that you know the assistant in question well enough to also. And then we have what's known as engineering science. So reported STCW has specified that you have to have some form of engineering science training. So you match your mechanics, surveys, unfortunately, we all have to do them. Your exam, as I said, conducts alongside online through Microsoft Teams, and we try to cover as much of the syllabus as possible. It's very much syllabus, so we don't always, very rarely cover everything, but we'll focus on safety again, and at management level, we'll focus on that you can manage situations properly, and you can keep your team and the ship safe. And then workshop skills training. So we understand that you're probably not going to have a massive workshop on board if it's research. But again, it's an STC levels. You need to show that we're meeting that standard. To put that into perspective, these unlimited workshop skills training. So we've managed to see as much out of that as possible, reduce that to 2 weeks. So it's kind of practical skills, bit of how to use tools, bit of machining, things like that. More senior awareness, so you go into the dry dock or you're in a maintenance period, you kind of know if someone says you're going to cut out a plate or something, and they're going to weld it in rather than what they mean by welding things like that. So these are my recommendations to you. So have as much evidence, have as much proof that you've done as much as you can do, especially with training record, and have it and give it to us so we can have a look through. The other thing is to read the MSN rules for. I know it's not the easiest documents to read. I think it can get confusing. But if you can to understand what pathway you're on, it does help our certification officers quite a bit, and they then will be able to assist you. the more we can give us, so that we can understand, we can help you more. We're not here to, the OC isn't here to mess people up. We're not here to make careers. We're not here to make sure people don't get jobs. In fact, we want to make sure people get the best opportunities as possible. However, we do need to ensure that you're safe and think properly. So the next one is your testimonials. To keep up to date with testimonials, you need to supply 2 forms of evidence to show us that you have the right monthly service. Make sure that you split and you have a number of days that you've been watchkeeping, days keeping, and shifting on weight. There are several companies, she was saying, that will verify these service as well. So also there's some PYA, so you can use them as well. But again, if you can't prove to us the C service, it's very hard for us to kind of let you move forward. So it's always worth having a keep up to date. Again, we talked about soul engineer. So again, if you have a friend that's got an engineering COC, there's no harm in getting them to review your training record or review your tasks or whatever I'm trying tasks off, and then you'll pull that. The same with equipment. If you don't have that equipment on board, then write a report or read up on it, have it written down, and then go to someone that has it and kind of say it to them. If they're happy, then they can sign it off. And the other one is the general engineering science exams. They actually have a time limitation on them. So your engineering knowledge exams, written exams, will have a 3-year time limit on them. The general engineering science don't, because they're academic. So there is a little bit of kind of strategy and technique, not to the SDE where stage 3 exams are engineering knowledge, but when you're moving to the large chief engineer COC, it's worth getting those 2 academic subjects out of the way first, and then moving on to the ones that are time on them. They're also quite difficult, especially if you've been out of school for a while. Maths and sciences are a bit like exercise. We don't do them enough, then you forget them. I mean, I still miss my techniques, not arguably, but it's there is a little bit of techniques there. What strategy? And then covering the future. So we, the industry embarks on probably one of the biggest modernisation programs, probably in our engineering training history. We have rewritten syllabuses, rewritten training requirements. We've kept them in line with SCCW, but we've added stuff relevant to the marine industry as well. So this has been rolled out. It's giving the cadetships first. So we have different routes. The unlimited route, a cadetship would be a 3-year training program regime at a training college in the UK. And that is now going to be implemented at the end of this year. They're going to move on to management level qualifications. So second engineer unlimited, chief engineer unlimited, and then we'll be modernising the small vessel training program as well. So I'm not 100% sure how it's going to look. There will be new subjects in there that be more relevant to the future of small vessel industry. Also, the way that we're going to do exams might change. It might mean that we move to a more electronic platform for some of these engineering knowledge exams. At the moment, I'm not 100% sure how that will look. We're also going into review the service requirements for yachts. So we're going to have a look again at onboard service, sea service, or sheet service, how you can clarify and make it a little bit easier to understand. And the other part is training for alternative fuels such as hydrogen, ammonia. Not sure whether ammonia on yachts is going to be a popular sort of fuel. Certainly seems to be popular in the unlimited cargo manage. So I think this is going to be very applicable to the yacht industry as these alternate fuels. I mean, there's a new yacht that's already being built and bunker hydrogen. So we've been involved with training for hydrogen projects and batteries, methanol, ethanol. We tend to have we've been advising them how to train with these fuels. It's been a big learning curve for us as well, because a lot of us have pretty much only worked diesel. So it's probably about as much of a learning experience rather as it is for the training providers and the ships that are operating these fuels. The IMO, the International Maritime Organization, basically decided for about 2-3 weeks ago now that we will be having interim training for these future fuels. So that's a good step forward for shipping. And then the approved electric propulsion course, which is the APC. So I won't go too much on it because that'd be a lot of turning your sides on. So I'll let you talk about that. So just to give you just a brief kind of overview of what we do and why we do it. We're meeting international regulations. That's why sometimes it does look like we're being harsh. It's because we have to comply with these rules and regulations. We are there to help. We do try our hardest to help. There are, for our organisation, there are only 2 engineering examiners. That might be able to say, again, why does it take so long for me to get an answer from the NCA? It's because either I have to be in the office or my boss needs to be in the office. And sometimes that's quite rare to have both of us in. We do go out on audits and do sort of this. So that is sometimes why it takes time, because we need one of us to go through and review an application and then make a decision or to give advice on where to go next. So that is why sometimes it does take time. And that's it.
Thanks very much for that, Phil. I know we're not doing questions yet, but I just wanted to, because one thing that came out of what you said is the unified nature of the training and engineering, which is actually we've not achieved on the deck side, but on the engineering side now, if you get the SE qualifications, I think I'm right in saying that gives you the qualification that you need to work on a workboat or on a jack-up barge or a tug. Is that correct?
Yeah, tugs, fishing vessels, seismic research vessels, water-fixed vessels, wind farms.
Yeah.
So the reason that we brought back the yacht restrictive was to give you some flexibility. So again, going back to the ones where you do limited kind of sailings a year or whatever. The reason to restrict it back to SV and then restrict it to SV and then restrict it back to yachts was to make it easier or more flexible and to get you your COC. So to do that, we had to give up the other vessels just so that you could get onto the yacht. The idea was that then you could sail as whatever rank you were on the yacht that you're employed on or whatever, and then get that sea service. And then when you do meet the requirements, all requirements of the SB, then get the restriction removed. So you come back to where it's essentially sea service, and then we'll remove it. There is also transferability into the unlimited route as well. So there are pathways into the unlimited. I didn't talk too much today because I had a feeling of decrepit bundle. I thought sea service and the train wreck probably will the team that everyone most want clarified by the NCA. But yeah, there are pathways into the engineering route as well. Obviously, I don't think you have to do that 3 months virtual skills, but that's a bit more. You do actual kind of late work and the shooting things, whether it's when we went through the modernisation, we did some of that as well. So there will be more aspects to it. It might be less kind of physical jobs and things, but Yeah, there are routes into the Amazon as well. So you're not just limited to the Esprit. You can move across. It does take a little bit more time. It does mean that you've got more subjects, so boilers, steam, it's basically two-stroke engines as well. So there's that kind of element as well that you would have to cover. And we are looking at potentially instead of the watch, we're actually going up as well, restricted to yachts. So it would be unlimited VOC, so unlimited style and power, but restricted to yachts. So again, to give that flexibility.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So this is just to draw your attention to this fact, because the training that you do in the SE program to get your COC, the only thing that stops you transferring to a vessel in another sector is because the sea time is special sea time for the superyacht sector to make it possible for us to actually obtain the COC in the first place. So you might need to wait until you've got enough washkeeping time, or whatever it's called in engineering parlance, or go and get a job on a yacht to up that sea time. I think really is only the sea time. There's no other training to transfer to other sectors within the same category of size of vessel and power. So that is new. And so if you are interested in expanding your career into jack-up barges or workboats or tubs, then get in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with because I work with all the associations of those industries. I can point you in the right direction. But this is a new thing, which I think is perhaps insufficiently understood.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Ben Moss. Hope you can hear me with my microphone. Just did the sound check. Sounded okay. I'm trying to keep it still. I've been with Bluewater for 17 years since I left the remaining. And I've been teaching everything from AC1 through to your chief engineer, 3,000 gross needs, private tuition, oral prep, everything that goes along with your SV program, including the Helm operational and Helm management. So John's had good value out of me over the last 17 years. I've recently retired from teaching. I'm not nearly retired. Every time I try and stop, he gives me another opportunity to earn something else. He knows I'm here. Okay, can I just have a show of hands, please? Now, those of you who are actually serving all of those festivals. Excellent. And how many of you are actually in an engineering role? Good. Naughty boys are questioning that. How many of you in the deck engineering? Okay, good. Just sort of find out what type of audience we've got here. Obviously, I've got many of there online. With the humour to start off the event, deck officers, lead heroes and job. I've got control of the slide. John touched on how many super yachts and mega yachts there are. I looked yesterday, John, sorry to steal your thunder. There are now over 100 super yachts, over 100 meters. And there are over 2,700 billion in the world. So the growth industry is here for us all to see. And engineers will never go hungry. Look at me. We'll always be in demand. And if you do choose engineering as a career progression, I think you can live long and prosper if you have the right attitude and aptitude towards being. You can't just be an engineer because it's a good idea, I'm afraid. And life doesn't work like that. You've got to have some natural aptitude or interest that you can work on and develop. And a lot of you have found out in AC1 and 2. Great. How many of you have done AC1 and 2? Excellent. You will have found out fairly quickly whether engineering was a career choice for you, or whether it was just to improve your knowledge as deck engineers, or whether it's just because the book wanted it. What are we going to talk about today? Well, the future, really. As I approach the end of my engineering career, you are embarking, beginning on a new one. Lord knows what the future will bring. Phil has touched on the fact it could be ammonia, it could be hydrogen, it could be methane, it could be nuclear, solar, wind power, battery power. Who knows what it's going to turn out to be for the dominant propulsion system. Love it or hate it, electrics is here to stay, no matter what the propulsion system is. whether it's grubby diesel making electricity or whether it's some clever hydrogen system making the electricity. I think the future of control, surveillance, alarms, UPS and backups and batteries are going to be with us for your entire careers as well as the end. Got a feeling diesel's going to be here for a bit longer than some people think. The biggest issue, of course, with electric propulsion, batteries, and any form of stored energy, sadly, they're all dangerous to some degree. Personally, I don't like the idea of a super yacht and nitrogen mixed in, but that's just perhaps being old-fashioned. Bleaker, methane, nasty gas, ammonia, nasty gas, lithium ion, then nasty fires that have occurred on vessels. And this particular vessel on the next slide shows you what can happen when a lithium ion battery catches. This was in 2018. The MAIB report declared that the lithium ion batteries was most certainly the cause of this. And you're not going to be hanging around here with hiding behind the water or trying to fire it. You're trying to get off this vessel. You'll be into the life raft, digging and dirty because the fire is out of control. Lithium-ion battery fires are very different and difficult to extinguish. Bluewater STCW firefighting training is now including how you can deal with lithium-ion batteries and the flares that make. Although it's not on the syllabus. No, it's not officially on the syllabus. But Bluewater have led the way, knowing this is an issue. Spoken to somebody earlier today about your experiences in life with being an engineer. I've actually been at sea where we've had two real large fires. I've had a real fire in Harbor as well, which cost millions and millions of pounds to make good. And life changes dramatically when you have a real fire. It's great doing drills every Friday and ticking off the log. Now, if you are on a boat now with a lot of batteries on board, and some of them are lithium-ion, top tips from to get yourself some of these specialist fire extinguishers that can contain it to some degree. Big issue with lithium battery fires is the toxic gas that comes off them. They generate their own heat, and the more water you put on it, the more oxygen is supplied to the fire with water. And you just can't put it out. You've just got to try and contain it the best you can. They've developed something called aqueous collected dispersant. If you want some new big words to throw around at cocktail parties, and you can buy extinguishers that are better suited than ordinary foam. Compressed air foam extinguishers are also pretty good. For me, these are escape devices, containment and escape, rather than extinguish. I think, Phil, in the merchant world, or vessels carrying cars now, they just try and encapsulate the car with an iron box and do inside the jet. There's still a still going below the and it's not alive. So throw in the and but the fire gate was throwing like it's like a fire blanket over the top, heat for a shed still like that. Music like that was the issue that I think the industry is still trying to work out how best to deal with it. The UK colleges are meeting every month to talk about this. And so that, yeah, exactly that. They're still making their minds up. Sad, isn't it, that anything that's good in life or engineering, like beer, chips and women, they're all bad for you. Things that are really bad on chips are actually quite useful. Why do lithium-ion batteries catch fire? Well, normally overcharging, charging them too fast, or over temperature because you are in an environment where it's not cooled properly or ventilated. They can be discharged too quickly, a short circuit condition where they just develop something called thermal runaway. And this is where the battery components actually generate their own heat, which makes the fire worse. And sets fire to the next cell. The next cell starts burning. That generates more heat. The old equivalent of this was called an iron fire, which I personally experienced on a ship in harbour. where the economizer of the steamship caught fire, and the more water you put on it, the more oxygen you're supplying to the fire. You can't actually extinguish it. They put 1,500 tons of water down the funnel to try and extinguish this fire, and it just turned into steam. So there are specialist techniques into fighting fires with batteries on board. Going a step back from that, let's prevent the fire happening in the first place. Let's educate people in how to charge batteries properly, what charging rates you should use. Those of you who have got fancy battery chargers at home now, you'll notice that you can charge with pulse. You can use regenerative ones that shake the cells with an electric pulse every now and again. There are all sorts of different modes and methods. I'm told by the fire brigade that the people who experience the worst fires are people who plug in the wrong charger into the right battery or vice versa. So it has to be monitored. And therefore, we think training needed to be given to people to better educate themselves on how to avoid the problem in the first place. So with modern vessels, sophisticated technology, electronics is everywhere now, control and surveillance. Even the coffee machine you just had, I'm surprised that wasn't swipe screening on the film. Everything is going high tech and electronic. Those of you who are thinking of going ETO in the future, I think you're onto a winning future career personally, because everything is going to be controlled or monitored by electronics to some degree. My biggest worry is that we will lose the skills that we are already feeling the loss of, basic repair, maintenance skills. So we're going to try and educate people to use batteries and lithium ion properly. And it was decided that from the MCA that we should really start thinking about alternative fuels, future fuels, and training. The original idea was that the course would sit alongside AEC 1 and 2 and be called AEC 3. We had great fun at the MCA. I was on a 15-man working group trying to design what sort of training you guys and girls need to deal with this problem. And it grew and grew and grew. All of a sudden, we had a 3-month course in front of us that we needed to narrow down to the here and now. The here and now was batteries. So that was first on the agenda for educating people and to the level around about AEC 1 and 2. So the AEPC itself is a new course. It's not mandatory at present. And I think any electric vessel owner would be very keen on you having this on your CV. Also make you a safe person at sea. So I was part of this group with Bill and 14 other industry experts who decided what the syllabus should be. It grew into a mammoth course. Those of you who want to go through for ETO, it's worse than being a chief engineer. You can't do a bit of electrics. You can't do a bit of electronics. You've got to get stuck into quite a lot of fundamental stuff before you can develop these theories into practice. So it grew into a massive course that we had to trim right down. I think on meeting 5 or 6, we said we were into 3 months of training. We've got 5 days. So what are the important bits? It was decided by people cleverer than me that actually let's do 2 courses. We'll do a 2-day course for crew, just as an awareness on how to deal with fires and how to stop them happening in the first place. And then we'd have a 3-day course for engineers on the nuts and bolts and the electronics concerned with electric propulsion. So we decided we concentrate on batteries, separated into 2 courses, 2-day course for crew, a 3-day course for the technical engineers and ETOs. We're waiting now for training providers to take the MCA training guidelines and roll out a course with a suitable instructor and suitable equipment to get this course. Boo, hiss, say the yacht is another course, another €1,000 to Bluewater. Why do I have to keep paying for all these courses? Why do I have to do this? Actually, it's not mandatory. Well, I think it's the best non-mandatory course idea that's come up for a long time. Why? Well, I think we can get owners and masters to pay for you. If they want to employ you on their vessel that is inherently different, they should pay for your training. The MCA thought, oh, what a good idea. If they do this course, we could perhaps knock 2 weeks off the sea time requirement, which is very useful for somebody who finds it difficult to get sea service. I think it makes you more employable. And if you're on the road to AV&IT or ETO, it's certainly a great place to start. There's more electrics in AEC2 than one. There's more electronics in AEPC than a lot of other courses you'll promote. Reduced insurance premiums may be an attraction for some owners because if the boat is inherently different, insurance companies. I went to a conference in Barcelona 2 years ago where people stood up and individually said, ammonia is the way ahead. This is the way we're going to power our vessels. It is safe to store. Honda have produced a 4-stroke outboard hydrogen-powered engine with and everybody started off the benefits of ammonia and methane and all the rest of it. Until the Lloyd's man stood up at the end and said, these are going to be really difficult to insure. So I think, people have got to have the right training and the safety cases will have to be made for each boat before we can proceed. Okay, what are the aims of the course? Well, if you do the 2-day course, it's split into a number of learning outcomes that the working group, thought you guys and girls should proceed. Basically, it's hands-on and theoretical knowledge to make you safer and confident. On the MCA website right now, if you want to, you can go on there and download the syllabus and the learning outcomes for this new course, whether you're going to do the 2-day free one or whether you're going to do the 3-day. Just to summarize, the part 1 is the 2-day course for general crew awareness and safety, basic knowledge and use of batteries and electric propulsion systems on dry. We also look at battery fires in more detail. It's not covered on this. And we'll talk about decarbonisation for future fuels, the other hybrid vessels might. And finally, the working group thought it's a really good idea on an all-electric vessel. And cybersecurity was considered. It'd be very easy to hack into an all-electric vessel and stop it working. Maersk have already been hit by something in the past, which made it very difficult for them to operate. So I think cybersecurity is something that was an important asset and or part of this training. So that's the part 1 is the general awareness. Part 2, there's 3 outcomes, 5, 6, and 7, where the engineers get to grips with the proper charging facilities, safety systems, the ventilation systems, the testing, the proper maintenance and checking. So outcome 5, which would probably be the first day of the 3-day course for engineers, and the surprisingly large amount of batteries are available now. You can have lithium-ion, lithium-ion phosphate gel cells, absorbent glass mat, enhanced flooded batteries, all sorts of batteries. Every time I go to buy a new one, there's a new sticker on it that says it's now something different. What you used to know as cold cranking apps has disappeared. It's replaced by something called EN, European Notation. How do you keep up with all this stuff? We do this. We'll look at inverters, battery management systems, how we charge the batteries. The key thing for me is the systems that monitor the health of the battery. They give you advanced warning of a problem is about to occur. Ventilation and cooling is very important, as I've already mentioned. And the engineers will look at the electric propulsion systems, motors, maintenance, starting and stopping. Some of those vessels may be able to make electricity while they're not using. And finally, protection systems, firefighting systems, alarms, and surveillance. Second day of the engineer's course, hands-on, doing experiments, measuring current, voltage, resistance, things you touched on in AEC2. If you did it properly, probably a few more you'd already done some of it. and intrinsic safety of equipment you buy. You can't use a Walmart or a casino voltage meter to test it. You've got to have specialists. So fault finding, what equipment should I use? How do we keep it safe? Will be part of the second day of the engineers. The third day, the working group thought it was important that wherever you go around the world, you are introducing danger into your vessel by plugging into the mains on the jetty. You can actually obtain information and corrosion and hacking data through the earth cable of the plug that you connect into the shores. If you're lucky enough to have something called an Atlas converter on board, we'll block out a lot of this already. But you need to be aware that when you plug into a system around the world, it's a great way of hacking into your boat. So there'll be a fairly large session on what's called cold ironing, shore supply, hot docking, which is getting a corrosion current from another vessel through your landing wire. What happens when you go to America and it's 60 hertz? What happens to your 50 hertz? Your machinery runs faster, it starts to overheat, it draws more current. And the more electronics you've got on board, the more susceptible it is to changes in voltage. So, awareness of what you're going to get around the world and what you can buy to protect yourself. Any questions on the AEC course? Approved electric propulsion course. It's very much still in the design process, and I guess it will evolve over the next few years, over the next few years into, I think, a very important and interesting course as well. There are a pipeline estimation of where we start to learn. That's probably a question for John. Well, as a training provider, actually, that's a question for you, Tim. I've got to say, I've got another job. I think the MCA are ready to accept when a proposal shall try to get like that.
So would that work by you create the course, and then the MCA approves it, and then you start to lead on up?
Normal process, somebody writes course notes, lesson plans, and applies for a desktop over with the MCA. They come and visit the site, do a site inspection, check all the right equipment to deliver the course. They will look at the instructor and say, is he suitably qualified and experienced to deliver this course? And once you get the rubber stamp from the MCA, John can start making all the out people need to. In the fullness of time, yes. I think it will be important enough to matter enough for it to be part of everybody's training program somewhere. So where it fits into the cadet program or to the SV program, we're not quite sure yet. But in the fullness of time, will be a mandatory part of the other training SV. But as a standalone one now, I think this is a big experiment. It's difficult to mandate without having courses available. We make it mandatory for safety purposes, then create plans, but then if we can't, if there aren't anyone adopting that course, then we shoot ourselves in the foot because there'll be ships that can't land safely and therefore can't sail without that course. At the moment, we need as many training providers as possible, keeping the water. Yeah, it's at the moment, where the team will sit into the construction and that will be pretty engineering course, which will be pretty practical. So it'll sit within the MCA's pretty course structure. The cadet modernisation program, or the engineering training modernisation program, there's debate over whether it will be covered in core of engineering. So we might find that it works itself on the actual theory side of it, and the more high level or high tech side, or willing to actually engineering knowledge, exams or whatever,
So we're not 100% sure how that will look at the moment. But once it gets established and we get a crystal massive challenge within the industry that has actual propulsion as its main propulsion, then we'll probably start then managing that. At the moment, it's a completely voluntary course. So handles can
Get it on, it's free.
but yeah, we're eventually there'll be higher level courses, but whether it be another APT akin to the ECQ, or whether it goes into the SBA written exams, or whatever those exams I'm sure not. We're not 100% sure yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
they aren't likely. Okay, thank you for that. And a good question, well asked. And then, like I said, the course is free in exchange for €2,000. But if you can't get your boat paid, get your own net. Start thinking about safety on the beach and all the electronics on board. Just over a beer, maybe saying, and some battery batteries we've got here. But what safety procedures do we have in place to deal with this? Now, of course, if you're on a vessel over 500 and you'll be in the mindset, you can appeal to your DPA to help you with this. Okay. Any other questions on the AEC? The Achilles heel, as Matthew very succinctly put earlier, the BSB program, getting to the engineer officer, which is the auxiliary one exam. Then when you get to Chief 500 person, it's the auxiliary 2. Now, a lot of work has been done in the last 50 years to try and make the syllabus smaller, more relevant to the small vessel industry by taking out steam systems, boilers, two-stroke engines, big ships, and concentrate more on what you guys and girls are likely to see on board your vessel. Also, we found that auxiliary 1 was too big a subject, so we took clutches and gearboxes out of auxiliary 1 and put them into marine diesels, which made marine diesels happen, but everybody's still passing that okay. And so SD auxiliary 1 has been trimmed down to the absolute minimum that the industry experts think you need to know about to be a safe operator on board your vessels. Now, there will be stuff in there like garbage handlers and stuff that Matthew mentioned, but he can't even work on. So how am I expected to know how to pass the exam? He summed it up beautifully by saying preparation is everything. For auxiliary 1, I recommend you do at least 6 weeks pre-reading, as you would sort of private tuition if you can afford it. On old exam questions, I had to phrase the answer properly for the examiner to pick the buttons out they find wrong. It is the Achilles heel and the failure of many people that have passed everything else, but they still can't get past this hurdle. So preparation is definitely everything. I have one rule or one formula that I'd like to give you here. If you come in cold to this exam and expect to be spoon-fed everything you need to pass on a Friday, you will fail. It's as simple as that. You cannot come in cold. So you are supposedly experienced seafarers, and with that comes experience and knowledge on other systems, on other boats. John did a big survey a few years ago about what you guys and girls wanted out of your SB ticket. You want it to be transferable to other industries. You all went yes, and now we want your only. So we're trying to balance the system against what people actually really. Failure rates have improved. I contacted the SQA yesterday. I said, let me give the boys and girls some evidence on how auxiliary 1 pass rates have changed. When I first started with Bluewater, the instructor I took over from said pass rates in this subject are currently 27%. That's the expected pass rate through the course. After the MCA and Bluewater and other training providers changed the syllabus, it went up to, it was 18%. And then it went up to 27% in 2014. In 2018, 45% of people were passing auxiliary 1, And for last year, 50.9 people passed, passed course 3-1. So going from 18 to 50.9 through the SP program, for me, speaks volumes that it is a better syllabus, a better exam. People are preparing better. They're getting the message. We can't just be an engineer. For auxiliary 2, when you get to achieve 500 gross spells, in 2018, the pass rate was 51.2%. Last year was 61.8%. So I think they are encouraging figures for auxiliaries. One of the best instructors I ever knew is still teaching in father. He failed auxiliaries twice. It's just one of those subjects you have to, get it. I was lucky, I think, to be invited to the MCA last week to do a full review of the whole question bank for auxiliary 2 to try and improve pass rate to candidates understand the question. Are the answers realistic? Are they relevant to the ST program? And so we looked at each individual question, checked whether it was suitable for the small vessel industry. Is it actually part of the syllabus, or is somebody made up across the question to make you fail? Do we need to modify that question as a result, or should we retire? So we spent a long time going through over 100 questions, word by word, and the solutions, word by word, to try and get it better for you. A lot of people used to say, I understand the answer, but I don't understand what the question is. And so there's very clever business in writing proper exams. There is also clever business in you on the SC program. How many of you think of going through for SC? Okay, exam technique is another big thing. And I think we're adding on an auxiliary 1 review. There's a lot to do exactly the same thing. So the 2 subjects with the worst pass rates have and are going to be produced. And questions lying or fluid.
Just sorry, if we can just put the microphone back on.
Sure. That one.
Give it up question.
Hi. Yes, so I was wondering, with this new APC1 APC was certainly maybe rolling out, since that will be covering the subject of batteries and battery storage and safety. I recently did my auxiliary part 1. I found that almost still quite an bulky subject matter, and I think maybe the battery storage and battery management seem to be just a little bit too much for that one course. So I was just wondering, I suppose, in the future, if that might be reviewed and maybe responding on into.
That's a very good point you make. The course notes and the syllabus all refer to lead acid batteries, and it barely touches on gel cells and children plasma. So yes, part of that review that we will do today, auxiliary 1, will be to strip out old, outdated, or irrelevant battery topics and put in new ones, hopefully linked to another job. Yeah, making new questions and solutions relevant to the ones. That's a good point you made. It's probably one of the more outdated sections. Valves, pumps, hydraulics, windlasses, refrigeration, air conditioning haven't changed much in 100 years, but batteries have, and what's a bit making. Like,
Should we go to the questions fully?
yeah. Well, I read them out and we'll decide which one is best suited.
Right.
What do you want to read them out?
Yeah, can we do that?
I can sit down and hide in the corner. Thank you for listening to me. I hope your careers go smoothly and successfully, but stay safe and you'll live long and prosper and you'll make lots of memories. That is it.
Just
maybe so then she
Is that ours?
maybe the best is that Eric.
Yeah.
The best is that maybe we have to shout. So here's what she said. In well, I think it's good. What sort of battery is it? Lithium ion phosphate. How do you spell that?
The questions coming in for the
Running, which is a gas provided course, and that might be a course that, as engineers, if you want to move ashore, might well be of interest. And that course already exists and is running. And they're going to build the yacht research project management course as well, which is linked but different. And that hasn't been developed yet, but the definition for that is already being put together. And I emphasize this is the shipyards and the management companies and the crew working together. So if you, as crew members, are members of the Professional Yachting Association, then you're already members of the Alliance and you have a voice. So contact the PYA office and get involved.
Joyce, if
Yeah.
by series.
Yeah.
We did set out some fun. So the ECO-COC for a while was predominantly the only route was through an approved route, MCF route, which fitted on that ship, or I think minimum of H&D usually degree in electrical or electronic engineering. So we've gone back to opening a new route, which is the Experienced Seafarer route, so very similar to the SV one I said about the engineering, was the 24 ones, and things like this, journey all down those kind of routes. So the Experienced Seafarer route for ETO is what we really opening. So it does potentially mean that those of yachts can get or work towards an MTO-COC, but carry out with that, and the fact that it does need to be the right size and power. So there is a little bit more of a limitation on that, or it's a bit more stringent on the requirements of the type of vessel. So it will be out soon. It's with so basically when we do NINs, MSMs or MDMs, they need to go through a consultation process. They also need to go through our policy department and sometimes through lawyers as well. So it's in that process and should hopefully be published soon. Although I was told December, and it got dropped off because there was a couple of other more important MSNs going through that got delayed. But we'll be reopening that route for Easter.
Question?
Yeah.
Yep.
Double.
We thought the microphone is just coming. Otherwise, they can't hear you. All right.
Hi everyone. So my question is, you say that it's alternative route for 8 years, and right now I'm on a small business program, and I would like to what my advice from Holland on the university Holland. What they said was to take a chief engineer from the small vessel program, a chief engineer, and then try to do the exam. This is because I have a master's degree in electronics and computer engineering, and I would like to understand if now is having this route, if I wait for this route to show up, the alternative route, and follow that one, or I keep going with the smallest program.
So the alternate route has been that if you've got a master's degree in electrical and electronic engineering, then you should be eligible for the ETO route anyway. And it's the Experienced Seafarer route, the new one. Although the state reopened, it was the used to be a route to do that. You're better off contacting South Rates or plateaus because they issue action plans for the ETA. There's nothing stopping you having both
Like, so you don't have to choose one or the other. You just need to be careful with how you down it. You need to make sure that you have, if it's you're going to go to the ETL, it's relevant to the ETL, and then you can go to the engineer, it's relevant to the engineering.
I think on a personal note, if you do both, you'll be even more employable. My theory is the chief engineer of the future will be a user.
They won't pay you double pay.
So, yeah. Last question from those online. With more and more big yachts being built, will there be a program for yacht engineers to remain on yachts and be able to work on these over 9,000 kilowatt yachts without having to transition to commercial?
The issue is that once over a certain size and power, it does have to invest in globally. So there's less and less flexibility as the yachts. The yacht that size is basically a ship, and it's how that falls into international regulations and survey inspection regimes. So we are working on how we can adapt to larger and more powerful yachts going into the industry. We are going to reduce these errors. So there are a few other things that we can do for the SV and the engineering administrative, but no, I can't say too much about it because it's basically a more consultation phase and checking with our policy department how best to go about doing it.
So include MG's life.
Or there's parallel grids tonnage. Now, it needs to so that there's three things that of what I can't get back that shift. I could say about it with policy. There's a lot of stuff that we essentially could do when it comes to policy, how it applies in say international instances, UK as well. And they could potentially, so it's very active. So we've got to be with what I don't make right.
So to summarize, let's start this being discussed at the MC. You obviously can't say anything about today because nothing's been decided, but there's active discussions going on. I can say on the deck side, there is a clear intention to provide a pathway for, maybe it's easier to become a deck officer than an engineer. What do you think? Is that the case? Yeah, okay. But anyway, on the deck side, there's a definite intention to provide a pathway to master unlimited yachts, and the chief examiner has expressly said that. Now, exactly how that will be, the discussions for the modernisation of limited tonnage deck side are starting any day now, and will be going on for the first part of this year. So I think once there's an unlimited master with a yacht restriction, if it is possible to do it on the engineering side, nothing's certain. But if it is possible and it's still staying within the international statutory requirements, then I imagine that might be something that gets looked at in the future. But honestly, it is different with on the engineering side.
Okay. Well done.
Right, I'd like to. I think we're done, and I'd like to. No more final questions from the audience. Yeah, one out there.
Yeah, sorry, just one final question for Phil. I was wondering because for some people that be sole mentioning their boats, putting in the training, but obviously as the worker to get that signed off by the engineer. But a big issue I found also as an engineer is the review of progress. Particularly of the training record will be monthly reviews. Obviously, as a sole engineer, if the same can be said about actually being what's qualified to be able to assess your progress, then by that we'll be able to
use the monthly reviews. But so I'm just wondering how to get around monthly reviews of whole engineering. That's a good question. The SC training record book is based on the unlimited training record book. So the monthly training of you get company training officer and the onboard training officer. Those terms have come from the unlimited training record book, where it's pretty much expected that you don't have a second engineer on there that's still be the training officer, and that's so the reviews something. So that when the SC training record book comes to review, that will be changed because it doesn't apply and it doesn't work for the SD. So what I would say is, as long as you talk through with the master and say how you would like to and stuff like that, just don't really talk about the engineering because it will be competent. So it's not something that it's not a deal breaker. You don't get those signed. You do need your custodials and things like that, but it's not a massive deal breaker if you don't get you're going to stay with every monthly review. I'm not that fussed about that because I know that it's difficult to do when you're on the yacht. So that kind of thing I'm not that worried about. I'm more worried about whether you've done the training, whether you've done the task stuff, find out whether you understand what those tasks mean, and that you can constantly. That's what I'll be looking for when I review training records. But that would be a question I will answer that when I forgot about that. Good. Yeah, well,
just one thing from obviously where we are now as engineers. One piece of advice that I would give everyone is just future-proof yourself. We see all these courses which are coming up with as the technology developing. Just future-proof yourself for the next, thinking 5, 6, 7 years time, so that you have the skill set and knowledge to take over these vessels as they can evolve. Between these electrics to become more prominent. So future-proof yourself. Increase your employability or your knowledge spectrum. That's where we are now. Take over as the future can be general.
No further questions from the audience. I don't think there's any hands up, but I'm blind anyway, so I can't say no. There is one, right? Yeah.
Just one question. Someone working in the tech department that's interested in the field, what would be the first step to take right now you go towards some position?
I can speak with experience on this because my nephew, Jake, was in exactly that position. He was on the deck side, and for medical reasons couldn't continue on the deck side, so he transferred to ETO. And the fact is, and that's one of the reasons that we started the discussions about the AVIT program, because there wasn't a structured training. So I would suggest as soon as AVIT 1 is up, do it. As soon as AVIT 2 is up, do it. Get yourself a job as a dual role, deck engineer, possibly. That's the way that Jake did it. And work under an ETO to get, or an AVIT officer to get mentoring. And then obviously the level 3 doesn't exist yet, but there are plenty of courses that you can do at both Will, Favatero, Monaco, and the people I mentioned before in Scotland. They have in Liverpool. They've got some excellent courses, technical courses to increase your level of usefulness on a yacht. The problem is, in the absence of the alliance, when these courses were going, there's no commonly agreed structure. But these courses nevertheless do exist and are very good. And if you want to write to me, I'll put you in touch with some people that can help you. But this situation will vastly improve once levels 1, 2, and 3 are all up and running.
We'll share the recording after and all the contact details. There might be submit questions.
Very well, but
Yeah.
Is there's what's known as the electric racing. So it's not an electric box, so it's another sort of the I think 6 months these have other so if you put it down as
deck/ADIT or deck/train ETL or something like that. At the moment, we haven't quite decided on the courses that need to be done to get onto it. But something along the lines of a self-experience curricula, a marine collection maintenance course, which is like a 2-week course, something like that, something that's relevant to electrical engineering to get yourself onto it, and then get the ETR might be worth doing as well.
Wrap up?
Right, I think we're done, ladies and gents. I'd like to thank our 3 engineer panelists, who I think have been excellent. It's been really helpful having the insights from Matthew as a customer, having recently gone through it. I think your insights have been very, very helpful, Matt. So thank you for that. And my old friend Tim is nearly retired, but thank you very much for coming down and giving us the benefit of your huge experience. Phil is an extremely active and effective member of the NCA. We very much value his contribution, but I just actually would like, as a parting shot, and I'm not saying this because I've got an NCA audit next up, although I have, the NCA really are world leading in the way that they actually reach out to other flags. I've been doing this since the 90s, and there is no other flag state where you can actually have the man or woman that makes the decision that affects your life to sit in a room in front of the customers and take questions like this. I've worked with the US Coast Guard, I've worked with Malta, I've worked with France, Spain, Italy. My goodness, there is no other flag state. It's the Red Ellison Group is really actually world leading in this respect. So thank you very much, Phil, and thank you very much, all 3 of you. And can we have a round of applause for our 3 engineers?